In written evidence to the COVID inquiry, she said very obvious sexist treatment it hindered the work being done. And here she is giving evidence yesterday.
Really, really obvious that not only were there hardly any women there, that when they were there, they were, they had to turn their screens off, or on the Zoom meeting, or they were sitting in the back row, or there just weren't any women talking.
Do you recognise any of this, Natasha?
Well, I think it's really important with this story to recognise that this is not just about how women are treated in the workplace and the impact on them. This is about then what that workplace goes on to impact. And in this particular instance, it was policy. And what Helen MacNamara said in her evidence yesterday was that more attention was given to hunting and shooting policy than to how to help pregnant women, children, and women who are in abusive relationships during the pandemic, because women's contributions were consistently shouted down. Now, if you read Caroline Criado Perez's book, Invisible Women, you'll see this is not just restricted to Parliament, that in businesses across the world, things are being designed with men in mind because women's contributions are not being properly listened to.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, I've run news organisations, newspapers and radio stations, and I always try to promote women into positions of seniority because they're often calmer, they were often firmer and stronger, with the people who had to answer to them, and they were very efficient. And I worked with some of this country's great journalists. Carol Malone, who appears on this show, worked alongside her. Very tough woman. You wouldn't mess around with her. Eve Pollard, the country's first ever female editor. So if women put their mind to it and go for it, they can do it. But I accept there is still a huge macho problem in most workplaces.
Well, it's interesting.
And a toxic one.
It's interesting that when you talk about Carol Malone, Eve Pollard, you talk about them as very strong, very powerful women.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's part of the criticism of women in workplace in general, part of the criticism that women have, is that in order to gain these positions, in order to do well in many, many offices across the land. So please do call if you share these experiences, or maybe you think it's a complete opposite. 0207 862 2222 is that females have to take on a more masculine energy in order to push themselves forward. But is that fair? Should they have to?
No, of course they shouldn't. But what I'm saying is, there is a certain breed of women who say, this macho, toxic environment's not going to stop me. There's a glass ceiling, bang, I'm going to get through it.
But in order to do that, what you've basically said is they have to join in on that. Now, can't we come to a workplace where both these energies, not the toxic one, because toxic feminine and toxic masculine just needs to be kicked out, but a masculine and a feminine energy can both be appreciated and respected to the same levels?
I wish that was the case. The women who got on, honestly, didn't join in the old office banter and, jobs for the boys and all that. They actually stayed away from that and often surpassed their male colleagues by being distant and by being better. And I agree it's a rare woman who can do that. And I think the issue here is for the majority of women who haven't got the characteristic of wanting to try so hard against a male-dominated workforce, yes, they will fall by the wayside. And yes, there should be more help for them in the office. More people should watch what's going on.
I resent this being characterised as a case of effort. It's not that you can just try harder. If a workplace is designed with masculine characteristics in mind, by definition, it means that if you want to get on in that workplace, you have to become more manly. Now, some women do...
Do you have to become more manly or just have a stronger character?
Well, it depends what you define strength as. I think strength is taking a collaborative approach. I think it's being emotionally intelligent. I think it's listening to other people, all of which women are generally better at. But those are not qualities that are recognised or applauded in a lot of workplaces. So you are losing those qualities if you are expecting women to behave in a certain way or only rewarding women who behave in a certain way.
Well, there's also the challenge as well for women are looked at to be, they should be more collaborative, they should be more empathetic. And so when you get a woman that isn't and is displaying these masculine energies, it's like, oh, she's hard work. Oh, she's
very much so. Yeah.
Barbara from London, are you recognising some of this conversation, or do you think perhaps Helen MacNamara has got it completely wrong?
Completely. No, I'm recognising so many of the things raised because I've been in corporate for many years. And I find that you're right when you say that women have to take on this kind of masculine energy to be respected or to be looked up to, because if you don't, then it's kind of your opinion is bulldozed over. And I find that especially younger women are overlooked in the workplace unless they're very attractive. So you really have to leverage your looks and put on the heels and the, you know, because otherwise it's like, okay, well, why are you here? Couldn't you be doing something else? It's like you really have to fight as a woman for your respect and for your place and for your opinion to be heard. You have to go 3 times harder than, say, men.
So, Barbara, having worked in male-dominated industries in the past, what sort of experiences have you had that's made you feel like you haven't been listened to on the basis that you're a female?
I've had, for example, if I go into a meeting and I say something, it's like people might cut you off, or, you know, you have to really say what you're saying as loudly and as confidently as you can, because, or you have to speak very quickly because someone's ready to kind of cut you off. And that happens in general anyway in life, but especially as a woman, I find that you have to be 3 times as assertive as, say, a male, or, you know, and as a young woman especially, you have to be more assertive again, because older women might think, well, what does she know, and why is she here, and oh, she's just getting by on being a bit pretty, and, you know, you really have to work for your respect.
Thank you as well for bringing up other women in the workplace, because sometimes it is other women that are perpetuating this sort of atmosphere too. Barbara, thank you. Sarah from Liverpool, are you acknowledging any of these comments? Is it something that you've experienced?
Oh, I've experienced it, Storm, but I used to work, before I was a full-time carer, I used to work in academia. I was in science.
Oh.
Yeah. So really and truly, it was science. You know, you were treated as a scientist first and male or female afterwards. And most of the time, if you put your case forward, and you have to, I mean, science, you have to be bolshy anyway. So you put your case forward and they go, and what you say, whatever project it is, and say, well, it should be this or it should be that. And 99 times out of 100, you get bosses who go, yeah, yeah, that's right. Especially if they're around about the same generation as yourself.
Okay.
You get some bosses who are, some of them can be patronising and pat you on the head until they realise that you know your stuff, and they go, okay, that's fine, understood, got you there.
That's
but
interesting.
You get others who don't like a woman. You get some of them who have sailed through and they've got their professorship or whatever, and they go, oh yes, well, I know everything. And you go, hang on a minute, you've got that bit wrong, this wrong, that wrong. And they sulk. Now that can be male, that can be
male or female.
Female.
That's both genders can be guilty of sulking. Sarah, the interesting point I think you made for me was that some of your bosses, and it is some, and not all, and you know, not all men are terrible, not all women are terrible. Let's just get that out there. But that some of your bosses, they kind of dismiss you until they realise you know your stuff, and I suppose it's that assumption that men always know their stuff and women have to prove that they know their stuff there. But Sarah, thank you for your call. Becca from Essex, we're getting lots of calls on this. What's your thoughts? Are women ignored in the workplace?
I think women are overlooked. I think it's like what Mike said with that certain women with certain personalities are going to break through a glass ceiling. A man does not have to change the way they behave or the way they do their work to succeed in the workplace. It is just automatically. Why should we as women have to change the way we behave? Why should we have to act more masculine? Why should we have to be like perceived as...
There's a lot of questions there. I'll let Mike answer one.
Yeah, Becca, have you ever come across a situation where a woman has got on by being more womanly and not more manly? Do you see what I mean? I mean, some women I've worked with, when you saw them coming towards you with 5-inch heels, you would start shaking, believe me, because of the force of their...
womanly, though, is it?
No, it is. It's the force of their personality. Do you see what I mean? Because what I'm saying is, women maybe are not supposed to look and act that tough, and it takes people by surprise.
Well, and sometimes people take offence as well when they do.
Yeah, they do.
It's a difficult situation, and I don't know, maybe it's going to take time.
Didn't it terrify you, though, when our previous caller was saying you have to be bolshy in science? Because I think part of this conversation is about what qualities we're rewarding in anyone of any gender. And if the COVID inquiry shows us anything, it's that we shouldn't just be listening to the person who shouts the loudest when it comes to science.
Yeah, the squeakiest wheel, that's very interesting.